Oh,
I was texting Allison earlier this morning that we actually have had several registrations, but I also know that post COVID, the every year we get more and more people that sign up for these things,
mhm.
and then they watch them later. Uh, it's gotten more. We used to get like 50 people would sign up, and maybe 70% would show up for things. Now we have
Mhm.
like maybe 20 to 30 people sign up for things, and we'll have two. It's
Mhm.
who sometimes show up, and then we'll see that people are hitting the links later, and
Mhm.
they do multiple times. Sometimes you can see the IP addresses, so we'll have multiple downloads for things, but people sometimes don't actually show up. So I gave you fair warning, Miss Allison,
Of
that it's
course.
possible that this is going to be largely a you and me session. We'll have a conversation. We can share this with others, and I think it's an opportunity, and I think it also blends well with what you've already done.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and kick off. I'd like to make a little introduction and sort of talk about the topic today.
Mhm.
So,
Perfect.
good afternoon or good morning, depending on when and where you are. But welcome to another education session from Cancer Active. I'm Kenny Capps. I'm the founder of Cancer Active, and I'm grateful that you're here with us. At Cancer Active, we believe in quality of life with cancer as possible, and that includes how we work with stress, uncertainty, fear, and overwhelm. We talk a lot about movement and fitness and policy, but today we're focusing on something foundational, how we relate to what's happening inside of us. Stress is not just a mindset issue, it's physiological, it's emotional, it's relational. And for people navigating cancer, whether as patients, caregivers, survivors, or loved ones, stress is not abstract, it's real. Today, we're discussing mindfulness for stress relief, which offers practical tools that are gentle, accessible, and usable in everyday life. This isn't about being perfect, it's about awareness, it's about choice. And we're really honored to have Alison Crowley of Bolster and Bridge leading us. Alison is a certified yoga therapist and an experienced registered yoga teacher. She has specialized in supporting people living with cancer since 2007. She co-created and leads yoga therapy and mindfulness programs for major cancer centers, including Cedars-Sinai, Tower Cancer Research Foundation, Vantage Oncology, and USC Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center. She brings therapeutic yoga and mindfulness to people across all stages of treatment. She also teaches weekly Zoom classes and is the author of a listening program called The Cancer Care Companion. And I love this part. She lives right here in Asheville, where I live, with her husband and their little dog, Viv. So we're keeping this local and global at the same time. Alison, thank you for offering this as an in-kind contribution to Cancer Active. We are grateful.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Kenny. I love what you do. I love what your organization does. I've been working with people diagnosed with cancer for, quite a long time now. And I have noticed that movement, exercise, mindfulness, working to be present and working with stress rather than fighting against it is a definite life improver. It definitely, we get to squeeze more out of life when we're moving our bodies and calming our minds. So that's what today is really about. I have a little PowerPoint presentation that everybody can use and have afterward, obviously. And it's really about, the work I've been doing over the last 20 something years with first in-person students before COVID. I had classes all over the place in Los Angeles, and I'd spend 3 hours in my car driving around, which I don't have to do anymore, which is lovely. But I miss that. I miss that in-person stuff. But you know what? Zoom is a godsend. Thank God for Zoom. We have Zoom now, and we can be together in a different way and work on our stress and work on our bodies. So here we are. I am going to share the screen and we'll start up here. Let's go to here and to here. There we go. And then I'm going to start the slideshow. Here we go. Play from start. There we are. Okay. So today is about building a mindfulness practice for stress relief. You don't have to know anything about mindfulness at all. You can be someone who's never heard of it. You can be someone who's practiced it. You can be an expert. Doesn't matter. These are all different tools, some of which some of you may know, some of you may not. But it's a way to work with stress, as I said, rather than against it, because that just exacerbates it, right? When we fight it. First, we're just going to define stress. We all know what it feels like. But I find that once we define something and take a look at what it really is, it sort of takes the sting out of it when we're feeling it. We can recognize it when it comes on and say, oh, I know what this is. I know where it comes from. I know the physiology of this. I can take a moment and put myself, give myself a little space away from this stressful situation to see what it is and to respond to it rather than our reactivity, which, is something we never really learn how to deal with stress in our lives. So it's a mental, emotional, and or physical strain or tension caused by external or internal demands that exceed an individual's coping abilities and or resources. So what I learned when doing my research for this is stress is really about a demand on us that exceeds our resources, right? So if we don't have an answer to something, if we don't have enough information on something, if it's something that's out of our control, right, it causes a stress response. And the interesting thing about stress is that it can be due to a real or perceived threat. We can just think about something that's stressful that has happened before or may happen in the future, may or may not happen in the future, and we get the same physiological response, which of course is called fight, flight, and freeze. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are the largest part of the autonomic nervous system, right? The sympathetic nervous system is fight, flight, and freeze. It regulates our heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, urination, sweating, among other functions, right? It's the automatic. I love that autonomic and automatic, or, I think of it now as the automatic stress response to real or perceived danger. So when I've had people come to me over the years who are stressed and they say, gosh, I can't get my stress under control. I need stress management, or I'm such a stress case. The big answer is it's not your fault. You have no control over the response. It happens in your body, whether you like it or not, right? So the parasympathetic nervous system is also known as rest and digest. And it's that feeling of relaxation, right? When we're in a comfortable spot, when we're doing something we love, when we're with the people that we love, right? And it counteracts that fight, flight, freeze response. It slows down our heart rate, constricts our pupils, stimulates digestion. So what we're going to work on today and further define is trying to work into our parasympathetic nervous system, finding tools to work into the parasympathetic nervous system when we start feeling fight, flight, or freeze coming on. And the best way I've learned to describe this is thinking about a car. When you're in fight or flight, it's as though you're pressing on the gas pedal, right? And you feel all revved up and stressed inside. And you're just pressing on that gas pedal. You're passing every gas station, every rest stop, and you're just pedal to the metal. And eventually you run out of gas and you get that feeling of burnout. That is what happens to the body with constant fight or flight. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system is like pumping the brakes. So we're going to talk about learning how to pump the brakes when we feel that sense of overwhelm, right? A demand is too much for our resources. What can we do? We can't always think our way out of stress, right? But we can feel our way through. And this is sort of what mind body work is about, feeling our way through. We're not taught to feel in Western society. We're taught to just go, 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 get it done, push through, put on a brave face, do whatever we need to do to get through a situation. So it seems really counterintuitive to feel something now, especially when it's uncomfortable. So freeze is a little bit different than fight or flight. And I'm a professional freezer. That's where I go immediately with stress. Freeze is like pressing on the gas pedal and the brake at the same time, right? You feel all revved up inside, but you almost can't, get a word out. If you've ever had a really difficult conversation and, your mind is reeling and your body goes into fight or flight, but nothing comes out. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, why didn't I speak up for myself? Why didn't I say something? You are in freeze. And that is a trauma response, basically, from a lot of stress in your life and in your body. So this is an interesting little story. There's a wonderful doctor named Jill Bolte Taylor, okay? And she has a TED Talk, if anybody's interested. And she wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight. And she was, I think, 37, 38 when this happened. She's a neuroanatomist at Harvard University, and she studies the brain. She had a brother that had bipolar, I believe, or maybe schizophrenia. So her mission was to study the brain and figure out what was going on in order to have some answers or to have some support or help for him. So one day she was in her home and she was on a little exercise machine, like an elliptical or something, getting ready to go to work. And she started feeling really strangely. And she began to realize that she was having a stroke. And she knew this, right? Because she's a neuroanatomist. She said, I think I'm having a stroke. Now, she had the stroke on the left side of her brain, and the left hemisphere of the brain is our logical side. It's our analytical side, right? So it started to sort of blur her logic and her analytics and her language. The right side of her brain, which is connected with creativity, intuition, connectivity, was just going strong. So in her TED Talk, she talks about this sort of vacillation she was having between feeling okay and kind of good and present and able to observe and have awareness of what was happening on the left side of her brain. So somehow she got herself to the phone. She looked at the numbers on the phone. She couldn't really make them out because of the left side of the brain, but she managed to do it. And she stayed calm because she was able to observe what was happening in the moment rather than get into fight, flight, or freeze. That right side of the brain kicked in and she was able to observe. So she got to the hospital. She made a recovery. It took 8 years, but it only, pushed her further into her work when she recovered to study the brain and to see what happens when we get into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. So what she discovered, some of this stuff sounds woo-woo, right? But it is now evidence-based through science, her 90-second rule. And it states that the physiological experience of a strong emotion like anger, fear, frustration triggers a chemical response in the body that lasts only about 90 seconds, only about a minute and a half. So after this physical reaction subsides, if the emotion continues, so if we keep feeding that emotion of fear, of anger, of whatever's going on, it re-stimulates the emotional loop. So it keeps going. So what she realized is we have a choice. And this is how it works. an external or internal trigger sparks a chemical cascade. So we go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? When we're scared, fearful, angry. Hormones like norepinephrine flood the bloodstream, and this physiological reaction occurs for about a minute and a half. And after that, the initial chemical flush has passed through the body. Again, if the emotion continues, it's because our thoughts are re-stimulating the emotional circuitry, keeping the feeling alive. So what do? How do we deal with this when we feel a stress response coming on? We observe and we feel the emotional and physical sensations in our bodies. For instance, when we're scared, we might get butterflies in the stomach, or our throat might close up, or we might feel weak in the knees. Whatever it is, rather than forcing it away, pushing it away, pretending it's not happening, we lean into it. Okay? We lean into it and we say, okay, I'm feeling this right now. This is what my body is feeling right now. Now, the mind will inevitably start to wander back into the story, right? So the work is to stay present by coming back to the breath and the sensations in the body for about 90 seconds. So you just keep saying to yourself, I'm feeling this right now. My shoulders are tight. I can feel my breath. The mind is in a constant state of fluctuation, the thinking mind, between the what ifs of the future and the shoulda, woulda, couldas of the past. What's always present is the breath and the body. They can't be anywhere else. So by focusing our attention on what we're doing right now and softening into the sensations rather than fighting them, we can move through that stress response. Okay? Carl Jung says, what we resist persists. If you take anything away from this session today, that would be the thing to take away. When we fight something, a feeling, a situation, a relationship, when we fight it, our body fights it too, right? And we tense up and we exacerbate the stress. And it usually comes out, if not right then and there, as an hour later, a kink in our neck, or we yell at someone we love because we're stirred up inside. So letting it sort of pass through our bodies, as uncomfortable as it is at first, ends up bringing us to a better place. So we can choose to re-engage our emotional loops or shift our thoughts to something different after we've experienced it. I mean, I've seen bumper stickers. This is, an overly simplistic way to put it, but it's true. You got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel what's going on in your body. Your body knows. And you can reassure yourself in the moment that you're safe. You're just feeling something. We're not used to doing that, right? In society, nobody teaches us that really. I mean, parents are now with their children, but when I grew up, if you were having a stressful moment, you were sent to your room and to deal with it. And, as a child, you don't have the ability to deal with things like that. So this is where mindfulness comes in. And this is a quote by John Kabat-Zinn, who is a professor, and he's sort of responsible for bringing what we call MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, into the medical world. He defines it as this. So mindfulness is not this, this thing where you have to sit cross-legged and put your hands in a certain mudra or position. It's none of that. It's just the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, right? It's just paying attention to what you're doing right now. And you can do that for 3 seconds, 30 seconds. The thinking mind is going to bounce around and try to bring you into story and, reactivate that emotional loop. So we stay in fight, flight, or freeze. But we have the ability to just feel it for about a minute and a half and then redirect our attention to something else. And that is the definition of mindfulness. You can practice mindfulness anywhere, anytime. So here we go. This is I love this story because this is called the two-bird visualization, and it comes from an ancient text, a yogic text, thousands of years old, called the Upanishads. And what I find comforting about that is thousands of years ago, human beings were trying to find a way to deal with stress and to look at it um, objectively so they could figure out, how to deal with their feelings thousands of years ago. So the two-bird visualization is just this. If you imagine two birds sitting on a branch, an even branch, everybody's equal, and the first bird flies off the branch, flapping its wings, swooping and swirling, diving and soaring, and eating the sweet and sour fruits of life. Meanwhile, the second bird just stays on the branch and it observes. It watches the antics of the first bird, the highs and the lows and everything in between, right? And it stays where it is, watching on purpose, non-judgmentally in the moment. It represents mindfulness, that part of us inside where we can actually watch our thoughts. We have two minds, right? The thinking mind, and we have the observer, right? We can say to ourselves, oh, there goes that thought again. Why am I getting on this story again? Why does this keep reappearing in my life? Somebody inside you, your higher power, you can look at it as your higher consciousness, your soul, whatever it is able to watch the mind and redirect the thinking mind, right? I had a teacher who once said to me, and I love this, she said, this is who you are, and this is where you live. This is who you are, and this is where you live. And what we're trying to do with mindfulness is bring a little more of this is where you live into this is who you are. That's basically it. So the first bird represents the thinking mind, the what ifs of the future, the shoulda, woulda, couldas of the past, which are impossible places to revisit, right? Our power is always here and now, and that's where the body and the breath are, and that's where we are. This is who you are. This is where you live. And I love this too. This is an Irish saying. It's an expression. If anybody knows Gaelic, please, I'm going to butcher it. So jump in. The expression for I am sad is ta bron orm. And the phrase translates to sadness is on me. I am not sad. This feeling is temporary. It is on me right now. It reflects the Irish language's perspective that emotions are transient experiences that don't define a person. Our emotions, right, are not who we are. They come and go like the first bird, right? So anger is on me. Fear is on me. It's not who I am. In English, we say, I'm scared. I'm angry. So it's just a little shift in language, sadness is on me, fear is on me, anger is on me. So we don't own it and over identify with it as part of who we are because it isn't. It isn't. It's an energy that moves through us. And that's helpful when we're stressed, right? Because, I grew up thinking I was stressed for most of my 20s, 30s, and early 40s. I had terrible pain in my body all of the time. I had a neck brace hanging in my closet for every day of the week. I was this person it was so in my body from fear. I believed that I was fear. I believed that I was angry. That's what I was. That was part of who I was. But it isn't. It's just something that moves through us. So here we go with the mindfulness tools. So we've defined stress. We know what it is physiologically. We're sort of demystifying it. It's sort of, stress comes up on us, and we don't know how to deal with it. What do? We just feel stressed out. But there are actual tools that we can use using awareness, mindfulness, paying attention on purpose to what we're doing right now without judgment, that we can start to feed into our day every so often. And it is cumulative, and you can do it just for a few minutes every day, and you start to build an awareness about it, and it can really help you in a very acute, full, stressful moment, and also with chronic stress. Okay, so the tools we're going to be using are called the 4 elements, the 3 breaths, the crossover tools, and OGRE, which is actually an acronym for something that we'll work on. So we're pumping the brakes into the parasympathetic nervous system. We're learning how to pump the brakes with these tools. Okay, so the first one, this seems really like simple and, but it works and it really helps. It's paying attention. I like to use the 4 elements. This is sort of my own little idea that helps me to remember to practice mindfulness during the day. So the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air, right? We all have moments in the day where we're, connecting to those elements. Daily activities. Fire, when we're cooking, right? When we're cooking, we can take a few breaths and just hear the sizzle of the pan, the heat of the pan, the smell of what's happening. These are all sensory things. And we can just take a few breaths to take them in. Morning coffee. You can just take a few breaths holding your morning coffee and feeling the warmth in your hands and the aroma of the coffee. Just little things you can start with. The warmth of the sun. We know that when we walk outside after the cold weather we've been having, today is a beautiful day here in Asheville. And, you can take a few breaths and say, I feel the warmth of the sun. We come to our senses. If any of you have ever watched like the Three Stooges, those old black and white movies, and somebody will be having, a stress response, a stress attack, and the other one, and this is not the way to do it, by the way, but we'll slap them across the face and say, come to your senses, man, come to your senses. That's what we're doing. We're learning to come to our senses because they bring us back now and they deregulate a stress response. Water, just washing your hands. Take a moment to feel the water and the warmth kind of move between your fingers, the soap. Feel the water running out of the faucet. Taking a shower or a bath is a wonderful way to practice mindfulness. Again, just sensing the water running down your body, noticing the temperature of the water, allowing yourself to be present rather than, scrubbing up and thinking about what do I have to do today? What's next? What's next on my list? Just taking a few breaths in water. Earth, walking is a wonderful way to practice mindfulness, really feeling your feet for a few steps on the ground. What does that feel like? Gardening, people, love gardening and feeling like it's I've heard people say it's like a meditation when I garden. I just sort of, I'm so in it. I almost, lose my thinking mind. I'm just so present. Air, the wind against your skin. You can just open the window in your car when you're driving and take in that feel of the air on your skin and just appreciate it. And of course, we use in yoga, focusing on our breath, right? The breath can bring us into a place of relaxation quite quickly. Inhales in yoga invigorate us. When you take a deep inhale, it's, I'm ready for what's next. When you take a deep exhale or a slow exhale, it brings a sense of calm over the body. So these are just little day-to-day things, and you can find your own that work for you using the 4 elements. All right, next. This one is almost like a magic trick for me, and I use this in all of my classes. And it's from a book by a man named Andrew Weiss, who is also a cancer survivor, and it's called Beginning Mindfulness. And you can do these 3 breaths anytime, anywhere. When I lived in LA, getting on the road in LA is a dangerous thing. There are so many cars, the freeways, 6-lane highways, and I come from New York City, and I never really got used to that kind of driving, and it would totally stress me out. So before I would turn on the car, I'd put my hands on the steering wheel and I do this little exercise, and it just takes the edge off. If you're wanting to prevent something that you know is stressful, and all you do, and we can do this together if you like, you can keep your eyes open or close them, but this is really nice. It's really nice. I have a lot of students who use this for test and scan anxiety. It's just a little saying that you say to yourself in your inside voice, closing your mouth gently and breathing through your nose. You're going to start just to feel your inhales and your exhales, just moving in and out of the nose. And as you breathe, you'll notice that your inhalations are a little cooler in temperature than your exhalations because the body heats up the breath, right? So cool inhales, feel the air moving into the nostrils, and feel the warmth of the exhales moving out of the nostrils. And you're just breathing normally. You don't have to breathe deeply here, just letting the breath be. And you say to yourself, as you're breathing, on your inhale, I know I'm breathing in. And on your exhale, I know I'm breathing out. And you just repeat that a few times. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out. We'll do one more. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out. And then opening your eyes. And that's an automatic reset into the parasympathetic nervous system, pumping the brakes. 3 breaths, you can do more, of course, but 3 breaths usually does the job. And I recommend this book if you're interested in further mindfulness. It's a wonderful book, Beginning Mindfulness by Andrew Weiss. Okay, crossover tools. This is interesting. It's also known as bilateral stimulation. And this goes back to the right side and left side, right and left hemispheres of the brain that Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor really experienced during her stroke. Bilateral stimulation, when we cross one part of the body over the midline of the body and the other part over the midline of the body, we engage both the right and left hemispheres of the brain in a calming way, right? So if you're too much in that left side, that analytical side, that logical side, and that is stressing you out, and you want to connect a little more with the other side of the brain and get into pumping the brakes, there are tools that you just cross over the midline of the body. So the first one is called the butterfly hug. And this is sort of like, I think of it as adult swaddling. You know, when you swaddle a baby in a blanket and they feel safe and good and comfortable, same thing. So you just take your hands and you cross them over your chest and you bring your fingers just under your collarbone. You can kind of feel your collarbone here. And right under the collarbone, there's a little soft spot. And you want to sort of find that. And you just rest your hands on your chest and slowly, gently tap one hand at a time. Just slowly and gently tapping your hands. And that gets both hemispheres of the brain to pay attention. So you're still awake, you're still aware. It's not about total relaxation. It's about a calm awareness. And if it feels too stimulating, some people don't even like to tap. They just rest their hands here. And that's the butterfly hug. Okay. I'm going to sit for the next one. This is called knee tapping. And what I love about this is if you work a lot on Zoom, people can't see what your hands are doing. I also teach this a lot during the holidays, like Thanksgiving, when people are stressed sitting at the dinner table. Um, you just cross your hands over your legs like this, and you do the same thing. You can just tap slowly, nice and easy. When you're feeling out of body or stressed, this just brings you back to the moment. You can combine it with the 3 breaths. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out. But this can be done under the dinner table. This can be done when you're on Zoom. Another thing people like to do is sweeping. So you can sweep your hands down to your knees, recross them in the other direction, and sweep again and recross. These are just mind body tools that calm us down, but keep us in, a present and aware and awake state. And you just sweep and you just sweep. So that's another little tool. The arm sweeps I love. These are a little more relaxing. These are nice before bed. If you have trouble, if you're stressed before you go to sleep, take your left hand on your right wrist and just sweep up your arm all the way up to your shoulder and then across the very top of the chest slowly, and then bring it down. And then the other side, you just sweep up the arm and feel it. Come to your senses, right? Feel what that feels like on your clothing, on your skin, and you just keep alternating up the arm, across the chest, and down in slow motion. This is really nice. You can sit on the edge of your bed before you go to bed. Again, you can combine this with your breathing. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out to make it more relaxing. And you just do a few of these, and it's just a really nice calming thing. Mind can be wherever it is, off to the races, the first bird flapping around. We don't shut out the first bird. We don't shut down the thinking mind. We watch it. We observe it for a few breaths, right? It's not really about finding this perfect sense of peace or calm, this work. It's really about changing your relationship with your thinking mind. Like, I know what you're doing right now. I can have those thoughts, but I can come back to something that's more calming that will better serve me. It really is about changing your relationship with your thinking mind. The last thing is really grounding and nice. And you can do it sitting if you have trouble standing. I'm going to move back a little bit. And all you're really doing is lifting up your feet and you're rolling your feet into the floor. So you stand on your toes, you roll to the edges of one side, back through center, back onto the toes. That's the seated version. We have all these little nerve endings on the soles of our feet. And it's sort of like acupressure, right? A gentle acupressure for the whole body. If you want it a little more, I don't want to say intense, but this is a little more helpful. You take your feet hips distance, you bend your knees. I call this the imaginary hula hoop. So you just drop your arms and you do a slow motion hula hoop, really slow. This releases the back too, it's nice. But you think about your feet and you think about the soles of your feet pressing into the floor for that calming little self acupressure session. And then you go in the other direction. You can do this at the grocery store, when you're standing in line, any old time. And it brings a sense of calm. It regulates the central nervous system. It pumps the brakes in just a nice, easy way that you can do when you're feeling stress coming on, right? It's like rocking a baby, really, for adults. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay. OGRE. This is the acronym for orienting, grounding, resourcing, and extended exhalations. So this is something you can do literally in 30 seconds, or you can take as much time as you want to do this exercise. It doesn't have to be a whole 5-minute practice, 10-minute practice. You can do it just about anywhere in different ways. So let's do a little practice of this, because I'd love for you to experience this if you're up for it, or you can just listen and watch, whatever you're comfortable with. So this is a great exercise for if you've ever felt disassociated, out of body. Growing up, my mother was very ill for most of my life, and she would go to doctors. She had so much stress and anxiety, and the doctor would say, "How are you feeling today, Mrs. Crowley?" And she'd say, "I'm feeling really out of body. I'm feeling really out of my body." And doctors would look at her quizzically and have no idea, really, some of them, what she was talking about. So if you're ever feeling that freeze sensation, pressing on the gas and the brake at the same time, if you're ever feeling like you can't focus or concentrate because of stress, this is a little exercise you can do. So we start with orienting, which is just connecting to our physical space, basically looking around. We turn our head when we do this because we're stimulating something called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is it's known as, it goes basically from the back of your brain all the way through your body. It touches every single organ of the body down to the colon and comes all the way back up again. It's a loop of information for the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So when we tap into it, the vagus nerve, just turning our head and looking around is actually calming physiologically. So all you do is you turn your head and you start to look at things in your space. Like, I see a picture on the wall. What colors do I see? Are there textures? I can look back down, turning my head to the floor and look at the carpet or the wood, the stain of the wood, the knots in the wood floor. I can look at a bookcase on the wall, and it's just taking it in, coming to your senses. I spy with my little eye, and just feeling and seeing and turning your head and just orienting yourself. This is like, I am here. I am okay, and I am here. And you just look around. You can do this for 30 seconds. You can do it for a minute, but you just orient yourself in your space, turning your head and looking at things and naming them to yourself. Okay. The second part of this exercise is grounding. And that's, that feeling that we had with the imaginary hula hoop, a sense of like being in our bodies, connecting to ourselves. So if you would like, you can close your eyes for this one, or you can just gaze down if you're uncomfortable closing your eyes, just a foot or two in front of you, keeping your eyelids soft. And it's a simple body scan. And we're not trying to change anything, right? We're just feeling what's happening right now. We're paying attention to what's happening right now on purpose, non-judgmentally. So starting at the top of your head, you can just bring yourself to feeling whatever you feel. If you feel nothing in the muscles or the skin of the scalp, that's okay too. Can I sense the skin of my scalp? Can I sense it? Can I feel it? How about the muscles of my face? Am I holding on anywhere? Maybe my jaw, my temples. When I worry, my husband calls it my 11s, when I pull my eyebrows together and I get two vertical lines right between the eyebrows. Am I doing that? Not judging it, just noticing it. And then bringing your attention down through the throat and the sides of the neck and the back of the neck. Just noticing any sensations. How do my shoulders feel right now? Can I sense my shoulders? Are they riding up toward my ears? Can I soften them down a little bit? My upper arms, can I sense my upper arms? My elbows, my lower arms. Can I sense my wrists, my hands, my fingers, the tips of my fingers? Just letting it all be just as it is. And then bringing your attention to the top of the chest. What do I feel, if anything? You don't have to look for a feeling too hard. Just see what's there right now. Down through my ribs, into my belly. How does my stomach feel right now? My hips, my low back. Can I feel my seat in the chair? My upper legs, any sensations there that I can just feel? Again, it's not about labeling, it's just about allowing your body to breathe a little bit, to feel a little bit. My knees, my lower legs, my ankles, my feet, my toes. Can I feel my feet on the floor? Even if they're in shoes, can I feel my feet in my shoes on the floor? Can I feel my clothing resting on my skin? Can I feel my skin that is uncovered? Is there a coolness or a warmth to it? What am I feeling right now? Any sensations in my body coming from an emotional place? Can I let them breathe? Remembering that feelings are just on us and they aren't who we are. So letting ourselves feel it, like the 90-second rule. My thoughts, the first bird. Whenever a thought comes up, I'm not going to push it away or swallow it or fight it. I can notice my thought and then have a moment to decide where to bring my thoughts. Back to the body, back to the breath. Letting ourselves feel, allowing ourselves to feel what is going on in our bodies, hearts, and minds right now. That's all it is. The third part of this exercise, the R, is called resourcing. And that's looking for a place on the body that either feels neutral or does not hurt, right? We spend a lot of time connecting our brains to our pains, and that's normal. But if you can take a breath or two here and find a spot on your body that feels either neutral or good, it could be your right big toe, your left elbow, it could be a shoulder, the top of your head. And just take a few breaths there, bringing your attention to that part of the body and noticing a neutral or a good feeling. This is not to say we're pushing away the pain at all. We can feel through the pain as well, but just to give the brain a break basically and just feel something neutral or good. And then the last part of this is extended exhalation. And we can connect, I know I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing out to this if you like. So start noticing your breath just as it is right now. And if you can do it through the nose, that's a little more relaxing. So you can put your lips gently together. And you're not breathing deeply, you're just letting your breath be. Noticing the cooler inhalations coming into the nostrils and the warmer exhalations coming out of the nostrils. Connecting to saying to yourself, I know I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing out. I know I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing out. And as you continue, see if you can slow down your exhalations just a tiny bit. Just take your time with your exhalations. Let the air leave your body a little more slowly. And you can even connect the words to that to help. So a normal inhale, I know I'm breathing in. And then a slower, I know I'm breathing out. And let's just do a few of those, slowing down your exhalations, pumping the brakes on the central nervous system. And when your mind wanders, which it absolutely will, and you notice the thinking mind, the first bird flapping its wings, bringing you into thoughts and stories, that's okay. Observe it for a few breaths. There goes that story again. There goes that habitual thinking pattern again. Oh, there's a new thought. That's happening right now. I can stay with this, or I can gently redirect my attention to the feel of my breath moving in and out of my nose. The feel of the warm, slow exhalations that allow my shoulders to drop down, that allow my belly to soften. Let's take one more breath like that. I know I'm breathing in. I know I'm breathing out. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. A little calming to bring us into the space we're in right now, into ourselves, into our breath, into awareness. That's all it is. Okay, this is my last slide. This is a mythical goddess, and her name is Akhilandeshwari, and it means she who is never not broken. And this is great for all of you perfectionists out there, because perfectionism causes stress, period, full stop. You know, we're always trying to live up to something. And, you know, the world, the universe is not perfect. So when we put perfection on ourselves, trying to be perfect in a world and universe that is imperfect, we're setting ourselves up for stress and for failure. And that can be a constant chronic source of stress for perfectionists, right? So, years ago, I was teaching a class in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai, and a woman was going through chemo, and she came up to me and she said, I am having the hardest time. I feel terrible all the time. I can't do anything. You know, I lay in bed sometimes for the whole day and I just feel rotten. Is there something wrong with me? Am I broken? And I said to her, of course you're not broken. You're going through this incredibly difficult, challenging time. You have to be gentle and easy with yourself, but of course you're not broken. And as I went downstairs to the parking garage and I sat in my car, I thought, you know what? That is not a satisfactory answer. I have to come up with something better than that. I've got to look and research into my mind body work and see how I can really support this person through this. This all happened pretty quickly. So a few days later, I was working with another student of mine who was 3 years out of being treated for colon cancer. And she had a beautiful house, and her husband loved parties. And, twice a month, he'd say, "Oh, we got to have a party." And she'd put out all the best china and cook and this and that. And she came to me and she said, I don't want to do this all the time anymore. My husband is like, "You're done with treatment. You're okay. You've got to move on, and we've got to have our social life back." And, that's what we have to do. And she said, "Sometimes I just feel like curling up on the couch and reading a book and, being antisocial. Is there something wrong with me? Am I broken?" And I thought, broken again in a week. And I tried to assure her again the best I could, but I felt very inadequate in trying to talk her through her feeling of brokenness. Finally, I was working with one of my students who's a Jungian analyst, and she was 20 years out of breast cancer treatment. And she said, "Oh, I have to cancel Saturday because I have a conference in San Francisco." And Jungian analysts, they work a lot with archetypes and with mythology and with dreams. And I said, "Oh, what is the conference about?" And she said, "Well, it's about this Hindu goddess, and her name is Akhilandeshwari, and she is the goddess of never not broken." So I thought, okay, I got to pay attention. So I went home and I Googled her, and I found all these incredible images of her. And some of them were like Picasso paintings, like her head was over here and her arm was down here and there was a leg up here and she was cracked in all these places. But there was a bright light shining through these cracks. And her story is basically that we are all broken in some way or another. And this isn't a bad thing. This is a human thing. We've all had our disappointments. We've had things that have happened to us that feel as though they've broken us. And rather than trying to go on with a perfectionist ideal, we can sort of acknowledge that this happened. And through these cracks, the light of compassion and wisdom and kindness shine through. We can pay it forward, right? We can, share our wisdom, share our experiences, share what happened to us and how we got through it. And that is the story of Akhilandeshwari. And I love this statue of her because she's not cowering. I'm cracked, I'm open, I'm beautiful, and the light is shining through me. And, I'm open. Come talk to me. Come be with me. I am, I am a symbol of we're human. And Akhilandeshwari also, if you research her, she rides on the back of a crocodile, broken, through this mythical river. And the idea is the crocodile represents our fear. So she rides on her fear and she carries on, even with her fear, in her broken places, and, shines her light. And there's a Leonard Cohen lyric that reminded me so much of her: "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in." And thank you for being with me today. If anybody has questions or comments, I'm going to stop the share and we can talk about things. That was a lot of information, but you'll have the slides. And I hope that you found just a couple of little kernels in there that might be helpful for you.
No, I think that was great. And thank you, Alison. And I really enjoyed the quotes, actually, even maybe especially the Leonard Cohen quote at the very end. And I don't know if you noticed in the chat, I
Let me
was
know.
trying to follow along with you and just and giving some links to some of the things that you were saying, as well as acknowledging what it is that you said, talking about some of the methods that you spoke about the three breaths of about the elements as well. I put a link in there to some of the books, as well as Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's TEDx talk, a link to
Yes.
her thing. I thought that was really interesting. And also just some reminders about butterfly hugs and knee tapping, arm sweeps,
Mm-hmm.
imaginary hula hoop. Um, and just a sort of a statement as to what those things are with the orienting, grounding, resourcing, extended exhalations. And to let you know that, as you say, it's not just woo woo. There's actually
Mm-hmm.
science
Mm-hmm.
behind what you're saying. These are somatic techniques that help reduce the nervous system. They reduce
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and they manage overwhelm in those spaces. And I don't know many
Mm-hmm.
people within the cancer space that haven't had to deal with all of those emotions, sometimes all at once. So having tools, techniques in order to reduce that, I think are super valuable. In fact, I would
Mm-hmm.
love it if there was a way to even just practice that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because as you say, it doesn't come naturally for all of us unless we try, right?
Mm-hmm.
Repeatedly try,
Mm-hmm.
put ourselves in the situations to where we can act on that. We've talked before in this group even about maybe box breathing, which is a
Mm-hmm.
similar style or tool in order to
Mm-hmm.
reduce those things. Breathing into the count of 3 or 4 or 5,
Mm-hmm.
holding it, or at least not breathing for the same count, then breathing out for that time period, and doing that in, again, a box breathing method. What you shared today reminds us that stress, it's not something that we eliminate. It's something that we relate to differently. The idea that emotions are transient, that sadness is on me rather than I am sadness, that alone can change how someone experiences a difficult moment.
Mm-hmm.
The reminder that a physiological surge lasts about 90 seconds, I think that's super valuable. And what
Mm-hmm.
follows is often the story that we continue telling, and it gives people ownership, agency.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to take control of those situations. Those tools that you shared, the orienting, the grounding, the resourcing, the extended exhalations, the 3 breaths, the 4 elements, they're accessible. They don't require equipment. They don't require perfection. And in fact, I think perfection is the antithesis of, well, success.
Mm-hmm.
They require awareness. That's all. And so hopefully I think today that you've given us that awareness. I know that you have. And thank you for that. And thank you for doing what you do. I have also at the beginning of that chat, I made sure that I put a link to your bolster and bridge site, which you also have on your site. You have that link to that audio clip that helps people sort of walk through a lot of what it is that you've talked about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank
Um,
you so much. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I love what you guys are doing, and
Thank you.
there's always something that we can do to feel better. We never have to feel like we're so stuck. And even if it's hard to begin, even if it's hard to start, you can you can email this if people don't want to watch it again. The people that were here today, you can email them this slideshow and they can just have it on hand and look at it whenever they like to practice it. Whatever works for you. Just the 3 breaths is a good one to start with. I know I'm breathing in, I
Sure.
know I'm breathing out. That's a doorway. Once you start to kind of feel the benefits of that, and you can do more than 3 breaths, but
Sure.
that's the doorway into sort of paying attention to what we're doing right now on purpose, non-judgmentally.
Well, thanks again. And I'm looking forward to us doing something again soon and having a way to improve cancer patients' lives, which is what you do for a living. So thank you.
Yes, and you
Everyone else, thank
too.
you for being here. I really appreciate you. Always wonderful seeing you. And let us know if you've got any questions. Please feel free to reach out to Alison if you want to follow up on more what
Mm-hmm.
she's done. And we'll see you next time. Don't forget, next week we also have our support group next Thursday at noon. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Reach out if you need anything. Okay.